In the volatile landscape of 2025, America's terror trends are shifting dramatically. Once dominated by right-wing extremism, the narrative is flipping as leftist fury surges forward, fueled by economic despair and social unrest. This report decodes the underlying causes and implications of this twist. Historical data from the FBI shows right-wing attacks peaked in 2020-2022, with groups like Proud Boys and militias driving violence. By 2025, arrests have plummeted 60%, signaling a fade to silence. Factors include law enforcement crackdowns and internal fractures within these movements. The January 6 Capitol riot marked the zenith of right-wing rage, but subsequent legal repercussions have deterred many. Online forums, once buzzing with calls to arms, now echo with apathy. Membership in extremist orgs has dropped 40%, per Southern Poverty Law Center reports. Economic recovery post-2024 election has siphoned off some right-wing grievances. Promises of stability under new policies have quieted the storm. However, this calm masks a brewing counterforce. Leftist groups, long sidelined, are mobilizing with renewed vigor against perceived systemic injustices. Leftist fury ignites from climate crises and inequality. Protests in cities like Portland and Seattle, once sporadic, now escalate into coordinated actions. Antifa-inspired networks have grown 35%, using decentralized tactics to amplify their reach and impact. A key incident in early 2025, the eco-revolt in California, where leftist militants disrupted oil pipelines, causing millions in damages. This contrasts with fading right-wing plots, like the foiled Michigan plot in 2024, which lacked follow-through from supporters. Psychological analyses suggest right-wing rage burned hot but brief, exhausted by setbacks. Leftist anger, rooted in ideological conviction, sustains longer-term campaigns. Experts at Rand Corporation note this shift could redefine domestic threats for the decade. Media coverage plays a role. Right-wing incidents dominated headlines, leading to swift interventions. Leftist actions, framed as activism, evade similar scrutiny, allowing fury to build unchecked. Social media algorithms now boost progressive outrage narratives. Demographic changes fuel the twist. Younger generations, facing joblessness and environmental doom, lean left and radical. A 2025 Pew study reveals 55% of under 30s sympathize with militant eco-groups, versus declining support for far-right causes. Government responses lag. Counter-terrorism units, honed on right-wing threats, struggle with leftist asymmetry. Guerrilla-style operations, like cyber-sabotage against corporations, demand new strategies. Funding for monitoring has shifted, but gaps remain. International parallels emerge. Europe's green rage mirrors U.S. trends, with leftist bombings in Germany. America's export of this model via global networks amplifies the ignition. Interpol warns of cross-border leftist alliances forming by mid-2025. Cultural backlash intensifies the divide. Right-wing silence breeds complacency among moderates, while leftist fury polarizes discourse. Films and books decrying corporate fascism inspire radicals, turning art into agitprop that sustains the flames. Economic sabotage becomes a leftist hallmark. In 2025, supply chain attacks halt food deliveries in protest cities, starving out opposition. This tactic, absent in right-wing repertoires, marks a strategic evolution toward asymmetric warfare. Law enforcement data, right-wing incidents fell to 15% of total terror acts in Q1 2025, down from 70% in 2022. Leftist claims rose to 45%, including arsons and hacks. The FBI's pivot strains resources, exposing vulnerabilities. Voices from the left justify the surge. Activists cite unaddressed climate deadlines as moral imperatives. Figures like eco-warrior leaders argue nonviolence failed, igniting calls for necessary disruption. This rhetoric fills the void left by right-wing quietude. Community impacts deepen the terror twist. Rural areas, once right-wing hotbeds, see de-escalation, but urban centers burn with leftist unrest. Schools and workplaces grapple with ideological clashes, fostering a climate of fear and division. Technological edges empower leftists. Drone swarms for surveillance evasion and AI-driven propaganda spread fury faster. Right-wing tech use wanes as platforms ban them, silencing digital rage while leftists thrive on alt networks like Mastodon. Political ramifications loom large. Midterm elections in 2026 could hinge on this shift. Leftist actions pressure Democrats to radicalize, while Republicans decry anarchist terror. The fade silence dynamic alters voter turnout and policy debates. Expert predictions, by 2027, leftist fury could dominate 70% of terror threats unless addressed. Countermeasures like community dialogues aim to cool tempers, but skeptics warn of overreach stifling free speech, potentially reigniting right-wing embers. Case study, the 2025 Chicago uprising, where leftist coalitions occupied factories, demanding green reforms. Minimal right-wing counter-mobilization highlighted the trend. Outcomes included policy concessions, validating the strategy for future ignitions. Sociological lenses reveal deeper roots, right-wing rage tied to identity loss, now fading with cultural acceptance. Leftist fury stems from existential threats like rising seas, igniting a generational revolt against status quo institutions. Media manipulation accelerates the twist. Leftist narratives frame actions as heroic resistance, gaining viral traction. Right-wing attempts at resurgence falter amid deplatforming, ensuring their rage fades into echo chambers of irrelevance. Security innovations respond, AI predictive policing targets leftist patterns, but ethical concerns mount. Civil liberties groups protest, arguing it fuels the very fury it seeks to quell, creating a feedback loop of escalation. Global eyes watch America's pivot. Allies like Canada report similar leftist surges, while adversaries exploit divisions. Russia's disinformation now amplifies left-wing chaos to destabilize the U.S., twisting terror trends further. Hopeful notes emerge, interfaith dialogues bridge divides, cooling leftist heat in some regions. Right-wing veterans mentor de-radicalization, breaking silence to counter the fury. Grassroots efforts signal potential for balance. Yet risks persist. A major leftist attack, like the rumored DC climate summit disruption, could shatter fragile peace. The fate of right-wing threats doesn't eliminate them. Dormant cells may exploit leftist overreach for comeback. Policy recommendations: invest in equitable growth to douse leftist flames. Reintegrate right-wing fringes through jobs programs. Holistic approaches, per DHS 2025 blueprint, aim to decode and defuse the twisting trends before they spiral. Personal stories humanize the shift. A former Proud Boy speaks of disillusionment, his rage silenced by therapy. A young leftist activist shares fury born of lost coastal homes, igniting her path to militancy, mirroring national arcs. Looking ahead, 2025's trends forecast a polarized future. Right-wing silence offers breathing room, but leftist ignition demands urgent action. Decoding this requires nuance, address root causes to prevent terror's next twist. In conclusion, America's terror landscape in 2025 reveals resilience amid flux. As right-wing rage fades, leftist fury challenges society to evolve. Vigilance, empathy, and reform can guide us toward a less terror-twisted dawn.